Hi everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, harvest season is definitely here. Lots of our plants are just pumping out the fruits and vegetables for us to preserve for the rest of the year. But during harvest season, it's also a really great time to decide whether or not you're going to save any seeds for next growing season or for your future growing seasons. Today I'm going to be saving cucumber seeds. And I want to bring you guys along, but today I also want to talk with you about why you would want to save seeds, especially because, seeds are just easy to come by these days. There are lots of really great seed companies out there that you can just order seeds from. So why would you want to save seeds on your homestead, on your farm, in your backyard garden, if you can just order them online or go to the big box stores and grab seeds? Why on earth would you want to do that? And if you do, how do you get started? So in a world where you don't really need to save seeds in order to grow your food for the next year, because you can buy it online, you can buy it at the grocery store or whatever, why on earth would you want to save seeds? And there are a few reasons that I think are important to share and for you all to consider. The first reason, which is why we will save seeds, when we find a variety of something that we absolutely love, there have been times where the next seasons, those seeds are hard to come by. For instance, several years ago, I fell in love with Emerald Giant bell peppers. And while Emerald Giant bell peppers are still around, for several years, it was really hard for me to find those seeds. I hadn't saved any of those seeds, so I had to go a few years without getting them. Now, I probably could have spent lots more on shipping to order them from somewhere that I had never ordered before. So that was my choice to stop raising Emerald Giant bell peppers for a while until they became more prevalent with the seed companies that I normally order from. There's also another variety of like a winter squash or like a butternut type squash that I fell in love with. I kind of learned my lesson from the Emerald Giant bell pepper situation. I love the Canada crookneck winter squash. I started saving seeds from that squash, and all of a sudden, as I was talking about that squash online and through videos, people were starting to say, we can't find those seeds. Where do you get those seeds? So the original source of where I got those seeds from no longer was selling them, and it seemed like they were pretty rare. So it was a good thing that I started saving those seeds. So as you find varieties of plants and their fruits and their vegetables that they produce for you, it's a good idea to start saving seeds from them just in case they're hard to come by in the future. Another great reason to save seeds from your produce that you grow is because each generation of those plants and seeds become more and more adapted to your climate and your soil conditions. So if you have a plant that is producing particularly wonderful fruit or, veggies, produce, those are the best plants to be saving seeds from because every year those seeds and those fruits are going to get better and better as they adapt more to your particular climate and your particular soil. Now, I think the most obvious reason to save seeds is cost savings. Now, I understand that you can get 30 seeds in a packet for a couple dollars from, this seed company or that seed company. And while that really isn't that expensive, if you consider how many seeds are in one bell pepper, or in one cucumber, one piece of fruit, one piece of produce that you have grown on your homestead or in your garden, that is years worth of seeds, and that is years worth of savings. Now, the last two reasons that I think it's important to start saving seeds is number one, less reliance on seed companies. And the other is really just general food security for you and your family. If you have next year's seeds or the next couple years' seeds available and preserved and ready to grow in your garden, you just have that much more food security for you and your family. Okay, there is a lot that kind of goes into seed saving. In general, it's a very easy process, but there are some things that you need to be aware of and you need to learn in order to be successful saving seeds. Now, rule number one with seed saving is that you should only save seeds from those that are heirloom seeds and not hybrid seeds. Lots of people grow hybrid tomatoes. We actually grow at least one variety. No, we grow two varieties this year of hybrid tomatoes. One is a Jetstar tomato and the other is the Juliet grape tomato. Now, an heirloom tomato, when you capture those seeds, when you harvest those seeds and you grow it the next year, it's going to be the exact same plant that you just harvested your seeds from. A hybrid plant is a seed or a plant or, a tomato that has been created, has been hybridized, not genetically modified, has been hybridized to create that type of plant. But if you save the seeds from inside of that tomato or what have you, the next time you plant those seeds, it's not going to be true to the seed that you planted or the plant that you grew that year. So it's important for you to save seeds only from heirloom plants, heirloom seeds, heirloom varieties of produce that you're growing. This is one of the varieties of cucumbers that we have planted this year. We actually planted 3. One variety in the greenhouse, 2 out in the garden in the raised beds, and this is the variety that I'm going to be saving seeds from. It is the Wisconsin pickling. It is an heirloom variety, and we loved it so much that we are going to save the seeds from these cucumbers this year. One very important thing to consider when saving seeds from the veggies that you're growing in your garden is whether or not they have been cross-pollinated by other varieties of the same type of plant. So cucumbers they're pollinated by pollinators, like bees and other insects like that. The bees go from one flower to another flower to another flower, and if they have been on another cucumber flower, the pollen from a different variety will get into the flowers of your cucumbers and the seeds will not be true to this variety anymore. Now, because bees and other pollinators can travel, they can fly from quite a distance to your cucumber plants, it is recommended that you save seeds from cucumber plants that are at least a half-mile away from another variety of cucumbers. Now, we do have other cucumbers here on the homestead that are growing. They're not a half-mile away, but they are quite far away, so I'm pretty confident that harvesting the seeds out of these cucumbers are going to remain somewhat true, and I'm okay with that if there's a little bit of variation. Those are just decisions everybody needs to make. Another thing to learn and consider when saving seeds is at what point in the fruit's life is the best time to harvest the seeds out of that fruit or that vegetable. In the case of cucumbers, when they're very immature in the eating stage, that actually is not the best time to collect the seeds. They actually aren't very developed inside the cucumber. That is actually what makes them the best eating, is that their seeds are not very hard and not very developed, but that's not when you want to collect the seeds. Now you can see in this cucumber here, we have forgotten about this cucumber. It is way larger than we would normally choose to harvest and eat, and it is starting to kind of turn yellow. You can still see some green in here. So this is not good for eating, but this actually is not the best stage even yet to harvest this cucumber for its seeds. Now these cucumbers here, this is the best color for cucumbers that are way overripe. There's no way you would want to eat these, but this is the best time to harvest the cucumber for the seeds. Now another thing that I've done is I actually harvested this probably 10 days ago or so. I brought it in the house for just to allow it to ripen even more. And it just gives the seeds inside the cucumber that much more time to ripen. Now both of them are pretty soft, and that's what you're looking for as well, for them to be soft on the inside before we cut them open and start harvesting the seeds. So let's go ahead and start harvesting the seeds from these cucumbers. Now I may only need the seeds from one of the cucumbers depending on how many seeds are in there. I'm going to go ahead and start with this one because it's actually the softest. I'm going to cut it in half lengthwise. You see inside of there, the seeds inside of there are very well developed. They're not translucent. They're very opaque. And when you pick at them, and you pick them up if you can, because they're kind of slimy anyway, they seem very full on the inside. Like if you were to bite on those, they would not be very appetizing. So I want to show you that inside of a cucumber, there is a lot of kind of liquid and kind of jelly type stuff. Each one of the seeds is kind of encapsulated with a gelatinous substance. In order for that gelatinous substance to be removed, we need to ferment all of these seeds and all of this liquid, and the fermentation process will remove the gelatinous substance that covers the seeds and really prevents them from germinating in the ground. I have a jar here, and I am just going to be scooping the seeds. Actually, look at that. If I just squeeze them, most of them are going in the jar. Use my spoon. Help get most of them out. You can see in here, there's a lot of the cucumber juice, all that gelatinous stuff, and a lot of seeds. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I'm going to give it a squeeze. Whoop, whoop. You can see inside of there all of those seeds. I would guess that there's like 100 seeds in there. I don't think that I need the seeds from the other cucumber. So, simple enough to start, right? It doesn't get much harder. The next step is to add just a little bit of water to the seeds and the seed juice. I'm going to be adding just about the same amount of water as there is kind of the cucumber juice in there right now. You don't want too much water. It will slow down the fermentation process, but you do want some water in there. I'm going to take my spoon. I'm just going to pretty vigorously stir that around. This solution is all set to start fermenting. We do want to cover this jar or whatever it is that you're going to use with a covering that is breathable. And then I'm just going to use a rubber band to hold that on there. Now, this fermenting solution here, it's going to take a couple of days to go through the entire process. I'm actually going to have this in the house with me so that a couple times a day I can take a spoon and I can really stir that around in there. I will know that fermentation is complete and that gelatinous substance is off of the seeds because most of the seeds will fall to the bottom of the jar and not be suspended, not be floating on top or kind of floating in the middle. That's how I will know that it is done. But I'm going to bring this in the house, let it ferment, and then at the end, when it's finished, I will show it to you, what it looks like when it's all done, and then I'll show you how to dry the seeds and prepare them for storage. Well, it has been several days since we started the seed saving process for these cucumber seeds. They've been fermenting. Now, I had these in the house on the counter for a couple of days to ferment, but I didn't feel like the process was happening fast enough, and honestly, it's probably because our house is too cool. 90 degrees is about the perfect temperature for seeds to ferment in a liquid solution so that the kind of gelatinous stuff that encases the seeds can break down through that fermentation process. So after 2 days in the house, I decided to move them outside in a warm location just on the porch, and it seems to have sped things up after probably another day or so. Now, when I swirl these around, it really visually seems a lot less gelatinous in there. The seeds that are developed enough have fallen to the bottom of the liquid, and those that are not developed enough have kind of floated to the top. What we need to do now is we need to clean these seeds. We also need to double check on the seeds themselves that the gelatinous substance that kind of encases them has fermented off, has kind of dissolved off. So we are going to clean these over by the sink using just a kitchen strainer. So in order to clean the seeds off, obviously we need to take it out of the jar. And this is just a small kitchen strainer that I'm going to use. I'm just going to dump these right in that strainer. Make sure to get all the seeds. And then I'm going to use cold water, and I'm just going to rinse these. Rinse them really well and just kind of agitate them just to make sure we get all of that fermented liquid off of there. Now I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to feel these seeds and make sure that that gelatinous coating that I was talking with you about is gone. And it's definitely gone. It's no longer like super slippery anymore, and you can really feel just the top coating of the seeds. And honestly, you see how thick these seeds are, and you can't see through them. You can feel that there is some substance to them, and that to me is a good indication that the seeds are very mature. Sometimes if you harvest the seeds too early, they haven't developed well enough to actually germinate when you want to plant them. And that's always kind of a bummer to go through all of this work to not have mature seeds that won't germinate for you next year. So these feel great. They actually look and feel like they're clean enough. So let's move on to the next step. The next step is we're going to dry these seeds off. Moisture and seeds don't mix very well unless you're planting them and you want them to germinate. So I'm going to lay down on the counter a couple layers of paper towel, and I'm going to put the seeds down on the paper towel. I'm going to spread them out a little bit. And I'm just going to fold this over to dry them off. Now, once all your seeds are, pretty dry from the paper towel, you want to transfer them onto a plate or a platter. I think one mistake that people make when they're saving seeds, especially in this situation where you're fermenting them and then rinsing them, is people will let their seeds dry on a paper towel, or they will have them dry on a paper plate that doesn't have a nice coating on them, and then inevitably the seeds stick to the paper towel or the paper plate during the drying process, and it's hard to get them off, and a lot of times the paper sticks onto the seeds. So that's why I use like a standard dinner plate like today. If I am saving a bunch of seeds, like a lot, then I'll just use like a platter. Now that I have them all on the plate, I am actually just going to spread them out kind of into a single layer on the plate. And I'm going to set these off to the side somewhere in the kitchen where they're not so far away that I forget about them, but they're not in the way. And a couple times a day as I walk by them, I'm actually going to come up to the plate and I'm just going to mix these around and just sort through them kind of with my fingers, kind of like that, just to keep them moving and to keep them drying evenly. Now, these are going to need to dry for quite a while. I would say at least a week until they feel very light and there's no sign of moisture in them at all. When there's no moisture left and when they're completely dry, then you can package them up. Now, I like to package seeds in these tiny little envelopes like this, and then we either print off or write, on the envelope what's inside of there. These are just a handy size for seeds. Now, if I'm going to be saving seeds to use like in the next year, these seeds can stay out in the open, room temperature for a year. They will last very well. But if you're wanting them for long-term storage, I suggest that you either put the seeds in Mylar with an oxygen absorber in them, or you can put them into jars and seal the jar really nicely and put them in the freezer or the refrigerator. They will last for many years in either of those environments. What I will say though is that if you're going to store them in a jar, in the refrigerator or the freezer, when you take them out to use them, make sure that you leave the jar on the counter until it reaches like normal room temperature, because you want to prevent the humidity from out in the air from settling on either your little packets or on your seeds themselves. If you leave them in the jar, then that won't happen. Now, over the years, I have been learning how to save seeds from, different things that we grow here on the homestead. And the majority of the information that I have gotten has actually been from a super helpful and informative book called Seed to Seed by Suzanne Ashworth. This is probably the best resource available for learning how to save seeds. It goes through all the veggies, the different cultivars, and what's going to cross-pollinate with what. And it's a really invaluable resource. Now, we do have this in our Amazon shop if you want to take a look at it. So I highly recommend this. You guys, if you are enjoying videos about seed saving and you're interested in learning more, make sure that you hit our subscribe button and tell us about that in the comment section. What are you hoping to learn to save seeds from that you're growing this year? If you're enjoying videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And remember, the best way you can help us here on the homestead is just to share our videos on your social media. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.